Welcome to the fifth quarter. The Seahawks season comes to an end today, 26-24 at the hands of the Arizona Cardinals. They finished the season 9-7 and out of the playoffs. And joining us now, special guest host for us on the fifth quarter tonight, Dave Krieg, 19-year NFL veteran, 12 with the Seahawks, has a ton of NFL experience. And Dave, with all that experience, you look at this game, you see what happened out there. Were you surprised that they seemed to come out so flat in the first half with a game of such magnitude?
It did seem like that. It's, they didn't come out with that intensity, but they always talk about the Seahawks being a second-half team. But, in a game like this, like you said, they needed to come out a little bit faster with a more sense of an urgency. They did do that in the second half, but it was too little too late.
You see what happened. This team used to be unbeatable here in Seattle, and, boy, they've really struggled this season at home. And is at some point the players maybe take it for granted coming at home, and they lost that protect the house kind of feeling?
Well, I don't know if they've lost that feeling, but they've lost some of the players that were a part of that. You lose Cam Chancellor, you lose Richard, you lose Cliff Averill. You're losing some experience there. So that was the thing that led out from the whole season on, and this is just the finality of it, the offensive line and issues like that, not having a running game. So we're seeing some of those things. Now you see what you have to repair for next year.
Yeah, well, the Seahawks needed to beat the Cardinals, and the Falcons had to lose at home to Carolina, and neither one of those happened. So there'll be three teams from the NFC South in the playoffs, and just the Rams from the NFC West as this Seahawks team loses again 26-24. Walsh misses another field goal, and I would imagine had this been for a trip to the playoffs and he missed that field goal, boy, whew, the fans
it would
have been
be
hot.
a lot different. I mean, it seems like, well, he missed the field goal, but thank goodness, I guess the Falcons did win. But for him to miss that field goal at the end, it just kind of put a damper on everything else, like they lost, and then they lost in that fashion. But had it been the other way, there would be a lot more going after Blair Walsh.
Yeah. Well, as you and I talked about before we went on, there's plenty of blame to go around for this Seahawks season, but they do finish 9-7. And then, you start looking ahead, and we'll have some time during this next 45 minutes or so to look ahead of the Seahawks' future and see what's in store for this team, because we know the injured players coming back next year. Who knows how much of that defensive unit will be here. So I'm not going to ask you to analyze that, but when you look at this, Dave, and you look at your own playing career, what would be a reason that a team would come out so flat in a game of this kind of magnitude? Like, I'm sure you've been in games where you're kind of scratching your head like, why are we playing like garbage?
Right. Sometimes you just can't figure it out. But it's happened a few times now. The last game I was here was the Rams game. Then they go to Dallas, and there wasn't much offense there. And then there wasn't much offense here. And the defense is on the field a long time. So it kind of goes part and parcel. It's like defense, you have to get off the field. But if you give the ball back to the offense and they're only out there for 3 plays, now your defense back out in the field. And I think over the course of a year, you get fatigued like that. As far as being flat, I don't know what the thinking is on that. You got to give credit to the Cardinals for coming out and playing with more of a sense of purpose in the first half than the Seahawks did.
Yeah, how much credit does Bruce Arians get? I mean, he's now 4-1 in Seattle as head coach. And he even made a crack, I believe, earlier in the week about how Seattle's kind of been his home field, almost like a home field for him, a second home, because he has so much success here. Is it just sometimes where a head coach and even a team just has another team's number?
I think that's kind of smart of Bruce in a way to tell the Cardinals, like, hey, we've been up there, we have won, and they have the 12th man, and it's a great home field advantage for the Seahawks. But he was just kind of putting it in his own players' heads and their own minds, like, yeah, we can go up there and win. We've done it before. Why can't we do it again? So that attitude right there takes out that, you hear a lot of teams come in here and they go, oh, it's a hard place to play. And you can psych yourself out by that. And I think Bruce Arians did a different thing. He just said, hey, we've won there before. We can do it.
Yeah, and it's a matter of you look ahead to the Cardinals and whether Bruce Arians is going to be back. There's so much speculation with head coaches. I saw even Pete Carroll's name up there on another network earlier today speculating that he could retire after this year, just throwing it out there. It's like, you never know what, of course, he's at 66 years old, what he's got left in the tank and whether he wants to embark on some kind of rebuild here in Seattle. But let's face it, that Seahawks offense needs to be rebuilt. We've talked about this offensive line and the troubles they've had, Dave, but at the same time, something's just not working and hasn't worked for a while on that side of the ball.
Yeah, we've noticed that the whole year. We talked about it last year. Sometimes you get players, and they're only as good as they are, and that's how much you can afford, and that's what you get. So they're doing the best they can. You can't blame the players. They're only as good as they are. You might have to get better players at certain positions, and it takes a while to revamp that. The Seahawks, when they came in 4 or 5 years ago, they came in and won with a young bunch of guys. Now these guys are getting older and getting injured. So now you got to start next year and find out how you're going to fix this offense up. The defense is okay, but they're getting older too. So there's a lot of fixing to go on, and it does start with the offensive line and the defensive line for the Seahawks as well.
Okay, I want to ask you one last question before we go to break. You know, as a quarterback in this league, it has to make your job much easier when that offensive line is playing. It seemed like every minute Russell, every snap he took, he was turning and pivoting already because he was under pressure. You know, as an offense, as a quarterback, and you're looking at your offensive line, it struggles like that. What can you say as a quarterback to even stay positive and keep everybody positive, knowing that the struggles that are going on?
That is a hard job to do because after a while it does get to you. You know, you drop back before you can even hand off. You're tackled. You know, my son Matt told me about that. Look, Dad, he got tackled before he was even handing off. So that gets in your mind. It's like, I got to rush this pattern. I got to get it off quicker. I got to do everything, and that starts to get in your mind a little bit. You start making plays or not making plays you should make, and that has an attrition effect, and it trickles down to everybody and to Russell. But to, like you said, Paul, he's got to be the guy to get everybody going, keep them going, you know, keep their heads up, and we always have a chance type attitude. And Russell does a good job of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, he's done a nice job of that throughout his career here in Seattle. Dave Krieg, 19-year NFL veteran, joining us here on the Fifth Quarter.